This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's from the 4th canto, 8th chapter, text 34. And this is Narada Muni speaking to Dhruva Maharaj. Gunadikam mudham lipsed anukrosham gunadhamat maitrim samanad avichen natapa abhibhuyate. I don't have the diacritics, so I may have not pronounced it correctly, but here is the word meanings. Guna adikat, one who is more qualified. Mudham, pleasure. Lipset, one should feel. Anukrosham, compassion. Guna adamat, one who is less qualified. Maitrim, friendship. Samanat, with an equal. Anvichet, one should desire. Na, tapai, by tribulation. Abhibhuyate, becomes affected. Translation: every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate toward him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. That is Narada Muni to Dhruva Maharaj, Srimad Bhagavatam 4, 8:34. And we'll read the purport. Short purport. Generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him. Isn't that true? And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. The great sage Narada therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate toward him, just to raise him to the proper standard. And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's own activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. So one interesting thing I have been thinking about. Ananya means pure, without ending, uninterrupted. Abhinand is asking, what is Ananya Bhakti? You could say uninterrupted, unmotivated, like that. Haribol Kush. And Prem Kishore is somewhere around, his computer's on. Now, we just read a purport and a verse saying that generally when you find someone more qualified than yourself, you become envious. When you find someone equal, you try to outdo them, and when you find someone lower, you deride them. But actually, you should respect the superior, befriend the equal, and show compassion to the junior. That's the instruction. So, recently I was dealing with a little conflict amongst devotees, some devotees. And one of the things I realized, which is very, I think, a very important thing to understand, is that in how the devotees are dealing with one another, because they're upset and they feel that they've been offended or acted against unjustly, when we're treated this way, our general response is not a very noble one, but it's one of upset. It's one of disappointment in the behavior of another. Sometimes we think about getting back, or we just become depressed, and which is understandable. But at the same time, there's another way to look at these situations, and that is that there's nothing in our Shastra that validates those responses. So our Shastra is full of both instructions in how we should act and full of examples of devotees who've acted that way, in other words, stories. And one of our principles is that in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, our actions are guided not by anything spontaneous, because if we act spontaneously, we'll act from the material platform because we're not elevated. So they must be guided or motivated by shastric injunction, scriptural injunction. Because when it's motivated by scriptural injunction, then we act in the right way. On the platform of Raganuga Bhakti, it's different. On the platform of Raganuga Bhakti, the motive is our thirst, our hankering for a relationship with Krishna in a particular way. And we may not always follow the rules and regulations, but the rules and regulations are specifically meant for people who don't have attachment, and that becomes the motivating force. But when the motive is spontaneous attraction, then rules are not so important. It's not that you won't externally follow the rules, but it's not that the rules are your motivating force. So oftentimes we're in situations in which things are difficult, and our tendency to respond to those situations comes more from a conditioned emotional level, not from a level where we think, okay, what does the Shastra say in this particular situation? Are there examples of other devotees who are in this situation, and are there examples? If so, how did they act? We normally don't think that way. We just act. I'm upset about this, so then I retaliate because I'm upset. This devotee did something I don't like, so now I'm talking about it. I'm talking about what he did, how it was wrong, how it was bad. I mean, these are common things. Or we'll give the example that Srila Prabhupada gives here, that we become envious of someone who's doing better than us. And we're thinking, well, he's not that great. Why is he getting all the glory? Or I could do that well. Or he was just lucky. Or people think he didn't do anything great, but people just think that. Or he goes out of his way to make people think like that. We might think that way. And then someone's equal, we want to show that we're at least as good as them, if not better. So we toot our own horn, so to speak. Toot your own horn means you praise yourself in some way, or praise what you've done. But then someone's less than us, rather than show compassion, we may deride them or put them down. Look at you, you're not even able to do this or to do that. And when the person who does follow strictly, then they become more advanced than us, and then we try to bring them down. So this is what Prabhupada's explaining, that these are conditioned responses to these particular relationships. And so I find it interesting that more often than not, when we are pushed to act in ways which are not Krishna conscious, we don't stop ourselves and ask, okay, I'm practicing Vaidhi, and Vaidhi means I'm practicing the actions of pure devotees. So what would be the action of a pure devotee? Do I have any validation now for my response to the situation? Do I have any validation from Shastra, from any example of a devotee, from any instruction from Shastra or Srila Prabhupada as to what is the proper way to behave? Because that's how we should be thinking. Okay, I feel like acting in a particular way. I feel like bringing somebody down, or I feel like pushing someone lower than me who's already down, or I feel like tooting my own horn to my equals. Okay, but where is the support for that in Shastra? There isn't any support. Actually, the support is only for presenting yourself humbly. The support is only for rectifying any misunderstandings, even if you have to apologize for something you didn't do. Like Ambarish Maharaj, Durvasa apologizes, and Ambarish says, well, you didn't do anything wrong. Durvasa definitely did something wrong, but Ambarish is taking this position, no, don't worry, I'm not offended. So that's an example that we have to follow, and that's what Shastra tells us to do. So, isn't it interesting how we have so much guidance from Shastra, but how when we become upset, we become overly attached to having something, to wanting something. We become proud, or any number of bad qualities affect us. And isn't it interesting how we engage in actions, which in this case I'm referring to responses to situations, which have no support in Scripture anywhere. And isn't it interesting that that doesn't dawn on us? We're just angry and we're acting in a certain way, and it doesn't dawn on us that, no, this is not the way a devotee acts in this situation. This is not how we're being trained by our acharyas, by Srila Prabhupada, by our spiritual master, and by the Shastra. Don't you find that interesting? How it kind of like all that goes out the door, and then we're just responding emotionally out of anger perhaps, out of frustration, out of feeling let down, whatever it may be. So this is of course a reality. So one of the things we learn here from this verse, aside from the fact that we're learning in this verse what's the proper way to act, but we're also learning that for every proper way to act, there's always a tendency to act in a conditional way. And so Prabhupada's giving the conditional response here, and he's also giving the devotional response. So if you're around a superior person, then you serve them, and you honor them, and you respect them, you glorify them. If you're around equals, then you befriend them. You don't try to outdo them. And if you're around people who are junior, you show compassion. You try to help them. You don't try to exploit them. So, I'm going to see if there's any questions or comments. Well, if you have any questions or comments, speak now. That would be good. Okay. You understand what I'm saying, right? That if we look at our life and we look at the things we do in our life, you think about the things we do in our life, and then think about all the things we do that have no support in Shastra, that we're just acting because we're upset, or we're acting out of pride, or we're acting out of envy. And to think of all the things we do, it's amazing, isn't it? In spite of the fact that Vaidhi sadhana is simply, Vaidhi means rules and regulations which will guide our actions. And that's what it's all about. And so we need to understand what Vaidhi Bhakti is. And in Vaidhi Bhakti, it's all about, okay, here's an injunction of Shastra which we should follow, and it therefore prevents us from acting in a way which is not Krishna conscious, because that injunction will be something Krishna conscious. Okay, this is what you should chant Hare Krishna. Well, I don't like chanting, or I don't feel like chanting. Well, that's another thing, but here's the injunction: you chant 16 rounds. And that's why devotees make vows, because once you make a vow means a commitment to follow a practice. And if you're spontaneously attracted to that practice, you probably wouldn't need to make a vow. But because we're not spontaneously attracted, that's why we make the vows. You understand? You don't need to vow to do, like, nobody makes a vow to go to sleep every day. I've never heard anyone make that vow. Because naturally we're going to do it. Or nobody makes a vow to eat except on fast days. No, we'll naturally do that because we like to eat, we like to sleep. You might make a vow to be brahmachari, celibate. That's another thing, because that's important. as a spiritual practice, and you may not be spontaneously or naturally attracted. So then you make a vow, this is what I'm going to do, to ensure that I do it. Because I may not be spontaneously attracted to doing it, but if I make the vow, then I'll do it. That's the idea, right? You understand that. So we should think, if we can, of course, when you get overly involved in a situation and upset by it, it's hard to think like this. But at least when you calm down, you should practice this kind of thinking, and after a while it will make more sense. Okay, I feel a certain way, and based on how I feel, I'm reacting a certain way. And so we can ask ourselves, well, what's the Shastric support for what I'm doing? And if there isn't any, shouldn't I be acting on the basis of Shastra, even if I don't feel like it, even if I feel like acting another way, even if I feel like I'm justified in acting in a way which is not Krishna conscious? And then, how do you know it's not Krishna conscious? Well, just look at your consciousness. How is this action affecting you? How is what you're talking about affecting you? One of the big traps that we fall into is that we believe we have justification for speaking or acting in ways which harm our Krishna consciousness because something happened which wasn't right, and therefore, because it wasn't right, I feel justified in a response which is not Krishna conscious. You may, in a material sense, in a legalistic sense, you may be justified. But in a spiritual sense, where is the justification for disobeying Krishna's orders or acting against or outside of Krishna's orders or the orders of your spiritual master? There is no such thing. So, Yashastra vidhim utsrija, one who gives up Shastra vidhi, the rules of Shastra, vartate kama karata, he's just acting out of lust or he's acting whimsically. That's the whole point. That without Krishna consciousness, basically we're whimsical. Because whimsical means outside Shastric injunction. So, more or less everybody is fairly whimsical, although society does have etiquette, it does have rules and regulations we follow. Different religions have their rules. But basically, most of the time, people's actions are quite whimsical. I feel, what do you want to do now? Well, I'm hungry, so let's eat. Whereas, shastrically, we eat only prasadam, and we try to eat only at regulated times, not just whenever I feel like it. So there's I feel like it, and there's what does the Shastra recommend. So Kush is saying, well, we should practice Trinadapi all the time. That is a huge, huge order. A huge order to be more tolerant than a tree. Huge order, isn't it? I mean, when somebody's talking about it in class, you can kind of enter that mood, at least theoretically within your mind, and you're just sitting in a class and you're hearing about it and it makes sense, but you're not being challenged. Nobody's finding fault with you. Nobody's being intolerant with you or mistreating you. So you can, it's not so difficult to get the concept if you're reading about it or hearing about it and understand it and agree to it and say, yes, this is good, I appreciate this idea. But when you're in a situation which requires great degree of patience or tolerance or forgiveness, then at that point it can become a huge challenge. So, as I always said, you have to ask me questions, it keeps me awake. I think I can make it for another 40 minutes. Then I'll go to sleep. I went to sleep last night at 7. So I'm really off schedule. So the real challenge is in life, in the real world, when we're dealing with situations, we tend to become very emotional. By emotional, I mean we tend to respond more based on how we feel than the Vaidhi, the rules of Shastra. Yeah. So Kush, even if you have a tendency to fight back or bite back or order or control, always ask yourself, where can I validate? What's the validity for these actions within my own scripture, my own teachings? No, in some cases, they have validity, like Mahaprabhu wanting to kill Jagai Madai, because they had offended his devotees. So if a devotee is offended, yes, you should become angry. And if our movement's being attacked, we should defend it. We should become angry. That is authorized. So because it's authorized, yes, we can act that way. But we should always ask ourselves, is how I'm acting authorized? Even you may ask yourself, look at how I'm feeling. Of course, feelings can't be changed. They already exist. And we don't have to act on those feelings. But if you want to take it to a higher level, ask yourself how you're feeling about something. Is this actually Krishna consciousness? Is this feeling bona fide? Of course, sometimes feelings just come as responses to our conditioning, but in that state, then the next question is, okay, this is how I have it, this is my feeling, but what will be my actions? Or what support do I have for acting on these feelings? And most of the time, we won't find support. And that will demonstrate how often our feelings are not Krishna conscious. So, and Kusha saying, she gets in trouble when she's not humble. But the point is, get in trouble not being humble. That's the point. You may not be humble, but you get in trouble if you don't act humbly. So I may not be humble, but I understand that I'm meant to act humbly. That's the injunction of Shastra. Shastra orders me to act humbly, respectfully, at least to superiors. And that's why etiquette is there, or culture is there, because culture and etiquette are guidelines for action. Okay, I'm not humble, but here's a senior person, so the etiquette is to pay respect. So now I'm forced to be humble. You see, even if I don't feel it, I'm forced. Well, here's this sannyasi coming, or a spiritual master, or a Prabhupada disciple, or some great devotee. Here comes a sannyasi. So, I'm not going to pay obeisances to that sannyasi. I've been a devotee longer than him. He's a junior, whatever. No, it's not like that. You see? So we think, okay, here's the Vaidhi of Shastra, which is to show respect. So we do it. And then we get the benefit of showing that respect. Guru Nisha says if we're always thinking for ourselves, we might just conjure the support to act that way. So now Guru Nisha is bringing up another point, which we commonly call rationalization. So you find a rationalization means you find rationale, reasons, to act in ways which aren't Krishna conscious. Now that is a paradox. Because you can't find any injunction in Shastra for acting in a way which is not Krishna conscious. Externally it may not look Krishna conscious, but you can't, the point is you don't act whimsically. You connect things to Krishna's service. That validates our activities. So, monitor yourselves. Monitor your actions, and when you're feeling upset about something, then consider, okay, this is how I feel. Based on how I feel, I want to act in a certain way, or I feel impelled to act in a certain way, but what does the scripture say about this? Just like I've been talking a lot about this principle of a devotee doesn't cause harm to another living entity. And so often we cause harm to other living entities, especially causing harm to devotees. But no, one who does not put another person into difficulty, and often we put another person into difficulty. Right? I mean, how often do we put others into difficulty, give others hard times, and so forth? Often, yes? So devotees, so we have to think, okay, what does Krishna say about putting others into difficulty? Krishna says, one who does not put anyone into difficulty, he's very dear to me. So now, what justification do I have for putting others into difficulty? I don't have any, right? Yes? So, here we have a comment, as you say, commentario, right? When we get from Oli, which in Sanskrit is Ali, yes? When we get completely into bhakti activities, like we do in the temple, everything becomes easier. But in regular activities, in the Occidental world, humble intolerance are really difficult to cultivate. Exactly, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. That it's easy in the temple. Sometimes it's not even that easy in the temple. Yes, alaksha. Ali is also transcendental. Ali means bees. Ali Krishna is one who's surrounded by bees. So, alaksha. Alaksha Didi. Didi means ant. She meant Devi Dasi, but we can call her Alaksha Didi. That's my whole point, that if we can execute Krishna consciousness well in the temple, in the association of devotees, that's wonderful. But it sometimes creates the illusion that when we're not acting Krishna conscious, in a Krishna conscious way, in our ordinary day-to-day interactions, in our work and our relationships, then we think that's okay because at the temple I acted Krishna consciousness. So it's important to understand that your activities outside the Krishna conscious, outside the temple, are meant to be Krishna conscious as well, which I think is obvious, but it's so obvious in a sense it's not obvious at all. Because as you say, we're so challenged by that. And because we're challenged by it, then a lot of times we think, well, nobody can really be Krishna conscious in environments that are antagonistic to devotional service. You understand? We might think, no, well, this situation, you're really not meant to be Krishna conscious in this situation because this situation is not Krishna conscious. You see what I'm saying? And looking at it objectively, it doesn't make sense. Because we can ask ourselves, why would I not want to be Krishna conscious in any situation? Right? Say, well, in this situation, it's difficult or impossible to be Krishna conscious, so I'm not going to be because I'm upset or disturbed by what happened. But why would you not want to be Krishna conscious? Right? Does that make sense? Like, why? And why would you ever want rationale for not being Krishna conscious? So you could say, yeah, but in my job it's difficult, right? We all recognize that outside the temple it can be difficult to be Krishna conscious, but we never want a reason for it, right? You understand? We never want to say, okay, it's difficult, and I have my reasons, even if you have your reasons why it's difficult, but you don't want to have a reason why you can't be Krishna conscious. You have a reason, okay, this is why it's difficult and how it's challenging, but I don't have a good reason not to be Krishna conscious. I'm just acknowledging or recognizing the difficulties. That's the way we should think. Okay, I'm upset. There's a situation here that I'm dealing with. I'm upset about it. Okay, we acknowledge you're upset, and we acknowledge why you're upset. It's a difficult situation. You weren't treated well, or whatever the situation may be, and we acknowledge, yes, you're feeling upset or disturbed. Okay, that's all right. But how do you act now? That's the point. That never validates non-Krishna conscious activity, because if the activity is not Krishna conscious, then we don't become Krishna conscious. And You know, it's not like you can go to the Krishna conscious court when you're leaving your body and say, look at my job environment was really toxic and I had to work there to make money so I could live, and that's why I'm not Krishna conscious now at the end of my life. And the Yamadeva is going to sit around and go, what do you think? And the other one will say, what do you think? And the other one will say, what do you think? And I'll go, nah, not good enough excuse. You could have done better. Right? That's what they're going to say, don't you think? I think so. Okay, we have some comments here. So let me go to the comments. This might keep me awake. Guru Nishtha says, what if we personally know so much about a devotee in his or her personal life that sometimes makes it difficult to feel so humble towards the same person, even though we're acting humbly externally? In other words, they're not exemplary, and they're senior, and you're supposed to be humble. We talked about this a little bit, and I'll go over it. You can, Atmananda, you can write down the question in chat, Krishna.com chat, Vainarati's question. We had spoken about this, Guru Nishtha, when we were talking about the Guru, and we said that our culture and general Indian culture, and any traditional cultures, there's a lot of respect which is given to superiors. Father and mother are given immense respect. King, guru, teacher, elder brother even. That's the culture. So if someone is a senior, but their behavior is questionable, then Prabhupada said, we respect from a distance. That's the idea. What did he mean by respect from a distance? He said, okay, you respect the position, but the person, you can't really respect them, so you stay at distance. Okay, I respect you that you're my father, I respect you that you're my teacher, I respect you that you're the king, like that. And if you see some of Prabhupada's pre-ISKCON letters that he wrote to Indian politicians, he addressed them that way. And there was even an interesting conversation in which one devotee said that Prabhupada, professors are proud, or scientists are proud. And Prabhupada said, well, they deserve to be proud because they've accomplished something material, or they have great intelligence. So, okay, we respect you. You're a scientist. We respect your PhD. Or you're a politician, and we respect you as a politician. Because as a politician, you're representing God to the people. Nardadev, you're God on earth. So we respect that, but your behavior may be unacceptable. So we don't accept your behavior. We honor you in your position, but we stay at distance. So this example came from devotees asking Prabhupada, should they pay obeisances to sannyasis who are not Vaishnavas? In other words, Mayavadis. And Prabhupada said, yes, you can do that. And he said, you offer respects, but keep your distance. And keep your distance means don't associate. So, Atmananda, you have a question from Vainarati? Jai Bhakti Ketan from Mumbai. I was in Mumbai yesterday night. Or the night before. Thursday night I was in Mumbai. At the airport, having a feast. Vainarati has a long question. Okay. Wake me up with her question. I'm going to sleep right now. No, I think Alaksha has a question. Let's see. No. Alaksha, did that answer your question or address your statement? She's going to respond. She's on Skype. Yeah, you can also get me on Skype. Yeah, it did. I think another nice point, which comes out in your question, is that When a situation is difficult, it seems, and this is of course coming from Maya, that there's rationale for not being Krishna conscious. Say, well, look at my situation. I'm working so many hours a day, and I have to take care of my kids and so forth. And I don't want to deny that you have to do these things, but I don't think we should ever just say, well, this is why I'm not Krishna conscious. We should just say, in this situation, it's going to be more difficult, and the amount of rounds, the time I have for chanting, and the amount of time I have for reading and service is limited. But I shouldn't give in to the situation and say, in this situation I can't be Krishna conscious. That's the mistake. I would say a better phrase, a better thing to say, in this situation it's more challenging to be Krishna conscious, and then the conclusion is, well, I will need to try harder. But often when we're in those situations, often we say, well, this is the situation, so why try? Instead of saying, I should try harder, we say, what's the use of trying? You understand? So that's not good. Right, Alaksha? I don't want to say, look at my situation, I go to work, I work with these people, they're in bad association, so I don't try to be Krishna conscious at work. No, there's no support for that in Shastra. Always think of Krishna, never forget him. That's Krishna consciousness. So I always feel that when things get difficult, there's two responses that we normally go through. One is try harder, and one is don't try harder. It's too difficult, why try? I tried and I fell, it's not working, and then you give up. Or you think, oh, this is difficult, I'm going to need to try harder because there's an obstacle here, which is the right way to think. So Lakshmi is saying she tries to share Krishna consciousness with people in her job. So yeah, that's a great way to remain Krishna conscious. Because in the Bhagavatam, I believe the 10th canto perhaps, Prabhupada said it's very difficult to be Krishna conscious unless you're always talking to other people about it. Yeah, that helps. So you found a way to take a situation which is difficult and make it more Krishna conscious. So that's good. Right? Whoa, yes. Oh, I already answered Benarati's question. Yeah. Well, let's see. If I fall asleep while I'm talking, then we know class is over, right? By default, it will end. No, I want to make it till 7, do an austerity. I'll only make it to 7 with questions. If I read anything else, it will be a little bit off the topic, I believe. And we'll get into another discussion. I'd rather stay on this topic a little more. I mean, we could talk, each point that Prabhupada made, we could talk, give a whole series of lectures on, about being envious of superiors, about trying to outdo equals, and exploiting in some way, or mistreating juniors. I mean, that's so common, right? And you talk about humility, it's interesting because if somebody is, far greater than me, it's kind of easy to be humble, generally. I mean, at least if you can acknowledge objectively, if there is such a thing as objectivity, that they are much greater than you. You've been a devotee 2 days, they've been a devotee 200 years. It's probably not that difficult to be humble, is it? But to be humble with an equal or even a junior, that's a real challenge. And there's a saying, a man is judged by how he treats another person from whom he can gain nothing. Like, I can't get anything from this person, but how do I treat them? Oh, how can one make peace with someone who doesn't want to make peace? By not disturbing them any further. by finding out the sources of their agitation and not throwing any catalyst in there that would cause further agitation, which often times may mean just avoiding completely and letting time take its toll. But generally you wouldn't want to put a lot of energy into making peace with someone who doesn't want peace to be made with them, right? A man is judged by how he treats his wife. It's a good one. Did I say that? Is that one of Mahatma aphorisms? Laksha's writing something. Okay. Yeah. Man is judged by, a man is judged by how he treats. I think you learn a lot about someone by how they treat people that are junior to them, or how they treat people who have nothing to offer them, who cannot give them any support. Thank you, Laksha. Laksha's appreciating that I've kept my eyes open for 45 minutes. Yeah, it was quite a feat, actually. Yes. Don't worry, everyone. Right after the class, my bed is like right here, like 3 steps away. All I have to do is get out of the chair. All I have to do is take this off, get out of the chair and take 3 steps, and I'm good. So I'll be all right, but we will make it. Okay. How do you respect authority when they're doing something that is making it difficult for you to be Krishna conscious? It's the same question. Like, look at authority in terms of structure. Like, if there's no authority, there's no structure. Can I have some water? Is that possible? I don't know if she heard. Anybody have water out there? Janwa. She's not hearing. Maybe she did hear. Prabhupada talked about this idea of authority in relation to sometimes complaints that he would get about authorities not behaving properly. And so there's 2 things. And one side is that often Prabhupada was unhappy about the way they were behaving, if it was in some way neglecting the welfare of the devotees, either on a spiritual, psychological, or material level. But from the position of the devotee who's dealing with the authority, then Prabhupada would make the point, you need authority structure, because if you don't, nothing goes on. So even the authority is not good, then Prabhupada said, well, you can take it to the GBC, or you can take it to higher authority. Say, this is not working, or he has said or done this, and this has disrupted myself or others. Of course, Kush is probably thinking, yeah, but if I did that, it would even make our relationship worse, which is unfortunate. Then you probably will not be able to work with that authority or work well, and you'll have to respect them for their position, but for their behavior, it may be more difficult to respect them. And I don't think Prabhupada was asking us to respect behavior that is not correct, but he was actually asking us to respect the position and work within the structure of authority, and if that doesn't work, then you go to higher authority. That's the idea. This, it was a gift, this necklace. It was, oh, you could say it was related to my, yeah, it was just a gift from a devotee who made it for me. You like it? Nice, huh? Fabioso made it. Fabiola. Not Chelsea, I don't think, but a present. We're wearing a present. You know, I think I mentioned to you that in America we have clothes, shirts that are called cowboy shirts. They're they're worn by cowboys. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but like cowboys wear hats, they wear boots, a certain kind of jean and a certain kind of shirt. And devotees thought that Prabhupada was a cowherd boy, so they bought him a cowboy shirt, and there are pictures from around 1969 or 1970 that show Prabhupada wearing his cowboy shirt. So when people would give Prabhupada gifts, he would wear them. And I think we also told the story that someone gave him a simple watch and then it was replaced with an expensive watch. So he took off the simple watch and gave it away and put on the expensive watch. And then someone gave him a simple watch and then he took off the expensive watch, gave it away and put on the simple watch. So he was already... he was always living simply. Right? No, that's not the point. Can I have some water? He was always, always living simply, yeah. That's not the point. I almost fell asleep there, I forgot. He was, devotees would give him things, so he would accept the gifts and wear them. So that's the idea. Yes? So, thank you. It's time for water. Wow, it's cold. Amazing. I don't know how hot it is. Can somebody do a search right now for the weather in Mayapur so we can get it? I don't. Do they make apps? Weather apps? Anybody know? Just so you can feel pity on me. I can see how warm it is here. Trying to get online here. See if I can get an app. 23? No, it's not 23 in Mayapur now. There's no way it's 23. Somebody else, Kusha, you're going to fail this weather class. Can't be 23. That's the low. 36 max. That's what it says. It doesn't give you a temperature now. .36. What is 36 in Fahrenheit? High 37. 38. That's pretty hot. How hot is that? Can somebody convert it? And can somebody find out how hot it is now? I just want you to all feel pity for this poor soul sitting in this hot room. Show your mercy on me. Shower it on me. And Vainarati's going, oh, Gurudev, can't you do something? Actually, I like it hot. I'm just playing. Gurnisha says, in ISKCON I have heard from many devotees that most of the gurus mostly do not get into or help out with the personal, or should I say, material problems of their disciples. They only help on the spiritual platform. But aren't most of the disciples' problems related to their day-to-day material life? Is it right? Is it right meaning aren't most of their... Well, 37 is 100 degrees, so the high today is 100 degrees. Wow. Yeah, now Vainarati realizes it's hot here. Now, can anyone find out, Bhakti Ketan, what the temperature is now? Is it 98.6 now? Or Kush did 36 and turned it to 98, or 37? Or what is it? Is it Kush? Is it 98.6 now? It feels like it. I don't, it's difficult to answer this question, but I think you're right. Well, there are philosophical questions, and you can read Prabhupada's letters, there are many philosophical questions that were asked of him. There are also many practical questions. And so Prabhupada did deal with the practical. And Prabhupada answered every letter that was written to him, but there was a certain point in ISKCON where devotees were asked not to write Prabhupada. And so we tried not to write Prabhupada with personal problems, but I wrote him with personal problems. It's 87.8, but it's 99% humidity then. Because 80.7.8 is not hot. There's got to be 101% humidity. All right, Kush, find out the humidity. The humidity is everything. And then find out what it feels like. That's the real thing. Thank you. Some gurus may have too many disciples to deal with their personal issues, but they may have counselor systems. Only 39%. Oh my God, I'm overreacting. They may have counselor systems to deal with personal problems, or mentors and so on. Or some gurus may prefer to do it themselves, or a combination of both. And it depends. What options a disciple has, how serious the problem is, how available the guru is. Like some gurus will, tell their disciples that, as far as a marriage is concerned, I don't want to be involved. I just heard recently there's another devotee who's very involved in the marriages of his disciples because he, 53%, 84 is a real feel. No, it feels a lot hotter than that. 84 is like wonderful. Anyway, I guess I'm overreacting on the bodily concept. So, add 10 for discomfort. Okay, that feels better. 94 feels better. Yeah, so some gurus feel the need to be very involved in their disciples' lives because maybe they, or at least set up systems that will help their disciples or educate them in ways that they can solve their material problems. Which is like one of the things I want to do is set up courses that will help devotees, you could say, prevent a lot of the problems we're having. I think that is important. And if we're well educated, then we can make better decisions to either solve problems or avoid problems. So, every guru has their own style. Some gurus are more reclusive. I know I have godbrothers who are very reclusive. They like to write and study and teach, and dealing with petty problems is difficult for them. It's not inspiring. And some gurus have no problem dealing with petty problems, and some have too many disciples that it's just not possible for them to deal with it. And I would assume, of course, many of those with many disciples have counselor systems, so there's somebody senior you can go to, and I would assume that those taking initiation from those devotees are happy with the people they're getting guidance from locally, knowing that they'll be able to hear their spiritual masters' lectures, but they won't have much chance to get personal instruction. It'll be more rare to get personal instruction from him. But in that counselor system, if the counselor is not certain of the answer, they go to the spiritual master and he answers it. Guru Nishta says, thank God I'm there. What happens when I have 1,000 disciples, Guru Nishta? Then what? You'll have to line up for 1,000 days. The Guru Nishta is saying, Oh, I hope you don't make any more disciples. Everything's good now. Okay, we have more questions. So Ketan's saying, what happens to disciples of a fallen guru? They have the idea is that you want to take guidance somewhere, and that guidance, you may feel satisfied taking guidance directly from studying Prabhupada's books and just the general association with ISKCON. If your guru leaves, then that may be sufficient, and you may be advanced enough that's sufficient, or you may find one of your godbrothers, one of Prabhupada's disciples, especially inspiring, and may want to take more shelter, more instruction from that person, even to the point of seeing that person as your guru. So that's a general principle, whether your guru falls down or not, is to seek guidance and shelter wherever you can get it. But obviously if your guru leaves or falls and you don't have access to that or faith in his instruction anymore, then, and you feel that you require that kind of guidance, you'll look for that, and Krishna will send you somebody, and that relationship may develop as intimately as your relationship with your guru. And if one loses faith in one's guru, one cannot hear. One should seek out someone they can hear from, that they have faith in. So Kush says sometimes it's hard to talk to male gurus, meaning it's hard to get to talk to them, or when you get to talk to them, it's hard. I think she means it's hard to, they may not want to spend much time with women. And then she says, need female to talk to sometimes. I'm not sure. And then you say no. Oh, now I'm awake. I don't, Kush, explain your, what, yeah. It's like women need to be able to speak to men sometimes. Yeah, as men have a different perspective than women. Oh, don't take more disciples. That's hard to... If I stay in Mayapur, I probably wouldn't take more. I wouldn't have to. Depends on where I preach. Different places you get disciples, different places you don't. Yeah, sometimes you need to speak to a female, that's true. That's a good point. Certain things are hard to talk about to a man, yeah. So that means we need more female gurus, or at least female Siksha gurus. Yeah, to balance things out, okay. Oh, I'm authorized to take rest now. We went an hour. Okay. Well, yeah, it's not easy to find a female to talk to. Well, what I've found is that, this is just my experience, it's not a criticism, my experience is that the women who will be most compassionate, or have, I don't say most compassionate, but will have the most time, are the ones who aren't married, or the ones who are married who are older. The ones who are older, they're retired. You know, when they're raising a family, women tend to be very focused on their kids. Now, there are a few women who are very much in the mood of Mother Teresa. But generally, like for women's ashrams, we've always found it hard to find a woman who will do that. It seems like women have their own personal needs, and sometimes it's hard, if it's not their own kids, to make that sacrifice. And as we see, there's not a lot of women that want to be guru, or for whatever reason, at least not Diksha gurus. And you could say, well, because ISKCON doesn't encourage it, that's why. I think that may be true, but I think it's also that's their nature. Now I just got invited to Balaram Dash. It may be possible. I have to figure out my schedule, that we may be able to sneak it in, just to satisfy you. Yeah, and Vrindavani Mataji is, she's in a more renounced position, so yeah. Women in that more renounced position can do it, but we even find it difficult to find male leaders, but... Okay, I think I'm finished.